I swam all throughout growing up. I was drawn to the water immediately. My parents always joke that I was like born a swimmer. You know, I dabbled in some other things for fun, but swimming was always it was just me immediately. Art, I was always drawing as a kid. I knew I wanted to be an artist growing up. Throughout high school, started making that decision that I think I want to go to art school. And so in the decision to come to Baltimore to study painting at the Maryland Institute College of Art, I made that choice to not have a collegiate swim career, but I kept swimming by myself. I'm a lifelong Marylander. Grew up in Frederick County, but visited Baltimore and the Inner Harbor often. I think my earliest memory is, probably going to an Orioles game and walking by the Inner Harbor. To tell younger Katie what would have happened June 2024, that a city came out and cheered on a stranger, and a fleet of boats followed me in, and Mr. Trash Wheel was there. I mean, I don't think she would have believed you, but I think she would have been really excited. Younger Katie definitely did not know much about the sport of open water swimming in general. I found the Chesapeake Bay swim, a 4.4-mile swim, which has been around for decades. And so I signed up knowing very little about what would go into the swim. And I had no idea that the current would push me this way, or the tide would switch at some point and push me that way, or like what the wind would do to waves and chop. And that was my first official open water swim in 2010. And I said, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I want to do it again. And then I thought, I really like this sport. I want to keep training for something bigger. What about the English Channel? And so booked that swim in 2013, so not that long after I got into the sport in general. And my first channel swim was in 2015, 10 years ago, which is wild. And now 10 years later, I've swum the English Channel 3 times and many, many other swims. So I really do love the sport.
There you go.
I've spent a lot of time in a pool. I continue to train primarily in a pool. But open water, then you're getting into all of the elements, all of nature, all of the unknowns. Every body of water is different. And even if you swim the same body of water day after day, it's going to be different every time. Open water is so unpredictable. Even when you can predict, you know when the tide's changing, you know when the wind might pick up. We have all of these predictions and forecasts, which have greatly, helped the sport because science and knowledge has gotten better. But it's still, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And so it is a lot of a call and response, right? You are just responding at some point. Making adjustments, being pulled out of a swim, I always say every open water swimmer is going to experience it. My second Bay to Baltimore attempt this year was pulled mostly because there were such high winds and waves that then the boat was having trouble seeing me. And they obviously need to keep eyes on me. I think about what is in the water all the time. I think every single open water swim I've done, whether it's in the ocean, a river, a lake even, every time I always say, "Don't do it, Katie, don't do it." And then in my head I hear da-da, da-da, and I start replaying the movie Jaws over and over again in my head. That's typically one of the first things I think about during these big swims. And while I do think many sharks have seen me, they're not particularly interested in us. But the little concern you might have that you get that little, in the back of your head, especially when you're starting a swim in the dark, dark water and no horizon line and don't know what's under you or near you. I think that is like a perfect metaphor for our anxieties and our fears in general, which is really what I'm exploring in a lot of my work. That anxiety, that little monster under the bed feeling, how are we dealing with that in life? How are we using playfulness and humor to get through it? So that's why in a lot of my work, I'm bringing in these bright colors and, pattern, that kind of like nod to how we play in swimming, in addition to the very real threats that are out there. When I'm out in the water, I think there's the feeling of water really moving you and like feeling really small in a vast span between countries, or, where you're out kind of in these big waves. I love how that makes you feel small. I've always enjoyed large-scale paintings. I've always loved the process of that, the physicality of making them. I also love that a big painting forces you, the viewer, to move, to walk towards it, to walk back, to have to walk like the length of the room, or really travel around, and how you move changes the way that you see it and the way that it feels. There's a lot of connections in what I do as an athlete, and then how I want these paintings to feel for other people. This painting actually over here, called Watson and the Shark, was in progress during my Bay to Baltimore swim in 2024. A couple hours into that swim, the sun started to come up. We're out in the bay. That's when it kind of started coming into my head that I wanted to pull from John Singleton Copley's painting, Watson and the Shark, but I wanted the figures to be my crew that I was looking at this entire time while I'm swimming. And if you're unfamiliar with John Singleton Copley's Watson and the Shark, it's a painting from 1778. It depicts a true story. 14-year-old kid, Brooke Watson, went swimming in Havana Harbor and had a shark encounter. That shark bit his leg off, and sailors came to his rescue. So this is in 1749. He lives, decades later, becomes the mayor of London City. He's like pretty involved in Parliament. He meets the artist, John Singleton Copley, and Brooke Watson commissions this painting. He wants it to be this massive painting hung publicly as a public service announcement to not swim in the ocean, which I find hilarious. But also, centuries later, we have a very different relationship with swimming. We know a lot more about marine life and the risks of swimming, right? It's been wonderful to use sport and art as a vehicle to really get there and connect with people. the more that I've shared it, the more that I've put my work out there and used swims to talk about things like the progress of our harbor and clean waterways and climate change and all these things that we need and should talk about. There's certainly people that I think when they hear environmental advocacy, I think there's a tune out that happens. But I think sport and art has this magic to make people feel something and connect. I would say every swim I've done, especially the big ones, have greatly impacted my work and how I walk through life. But the Bay to Baltimore swim, that really brought together community. And then since then, it's been wonderful to talk more with schools and go visit classes and get people excited about Baltimore and about our harbor improving and our city being a place to visit and something that we should be proud of. I was invited to Rotterdam in the Netherlands a few months ago to speak and share the story of my Bay to Baltimore swim and to brag a ton about my city, which was really a huge honor. Rotterdam is a sister city to Baltimore. They have a lot in common. It's a similar size city, waterway that's moving through it and shaping it, and a huge industrial background, and they have put in a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of investment into improving their waterways. And they now have this swimming area that anyone can go. It's free to swim. To see a city celebrating all of that, all of what sports can be in the water and all of what recreation can be in the water and making it as accessible as possible was really exciting. We have a lot of momentum in many cities around the world towards clean waterways, swimmable waterways, especially in urban areas. And the movement of urban swimming is growing, which is really exciting. Especially cities like Paris, like London, New York, and Baltimore, that we're all facing similar challenges with our waterways, and we need to keep making it the commitment to the future. When I started thinking about this show, I knew I wanted to create this interactive installation where you could, walk and go for a swim, use your imagination. I wanted to create this pool deck space where you could feel like you could hang out in the same way that you hang out by the pool. I wanted people to hang out by my paintings, spend some time with the work. I wanted it to feel just as welcoming and nostalgic as your neighbor's block party or the community swim. I think the more that you experience nature, right, the more that people get outside and go for a walk and swim in water, I think the more they care about it. So we need to create opportunity for that. When we get in the water, which is wonderful, I think we just need to remember how do we share that. And especially, a busy waterway like the Patapsco River and our harbor, it is a working port that is a highway for boats and travel and shipping and recreation. But there's ways to exist all together. There's ways to have swimmers safely in the water. There's ways to have boat and travel. And, I think we're taking the steps towards that really exciting future.